Hi guys, let's start with a presentation. I have been thinking about doing this presentation for a long time and now I have the time and energy to dedicate myself to it. We are going to talk about Jiu Jitsu and a bit of its origins. Jiu Jitsu, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, BJJ, any way you want to call it, okay? I have been doing Jiu Jitsu for some time, and for the last 10 years, I dedicate part of my time in researching about its history, foundations, philosophical, historical context of its evolution, and I'm going to share a little bit of what I have researched and my opinion as well. So let's start. From where should we start when talking about Brazilian Jiu Jitsu? Normally, we would think about when Mitsui Maeda left Japan in 1904 and he arrived in Brazil 1914, so he spent a few years, a decade, traveling around the world. He visited the United States and then he went to Brazil, and by 1917 he was already settled in Brazil. Okay, and everything I'm talking to you is from the back of my memory, so if I have to correct myself with dates and names, please just forgive me. I would like to start talking about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, thinking about Japan. Thinking about Japan in the 19th century. And Japan, let's get Japan. Okay. In the 19th century, Japan went through a cultural revolution. And this cultural revolution was the end of an era and the beginning of a new one. This era or period that was ending was called Edo. Edo period. Okay. Edo period lasted for several centuries. Starting during the 16th century, when Japan was unified. Japan was unified. Okay, so there was the unification of Japan under one ruler, and Japan has its emperor, and the emperor was a spiritual figure, not someone ruling the country, but the shogun, the ruler. The main ruler was the person ruling the whole Japan. Okay, this period lasted for several centuries, up to the 19th century, and due to external pressures, Japan had to open up. Okay, so during the Edo period, Japan closed itself to the outside world. Okay, and there were British, but mainly Japanese missions, British and Portuguese missions to Japan in 16th century. These Portuguese, they were there to trade. They introduced firearms and they also introduced Christianity. And during the unification of Japan, these missionaries, they were expelled, and it was forbidden for Japanese to leave their country. And throughout all these centuries, so the culture, Japanese culture, developed, okay, and evolved. Now, in the 19th century, a warship arrived to the Japanese coast. Okay, it's a American warship, and the Americans strongly persuaded the Japanese to open up the country for trade. Okay? The Japanese were well informed about the technological developments outside Japan because they had a connection with a Dutch mission. Okay? There was an island where the Dutch were established, and they were the only link with between Japan and the outside world. Okay, when this happens, the Japanese, outside here, the Japanese, they were very well informed about the technological progress of other countries. There were Dutch books arriving in Japan throughout the length of this Dutch mission to Japan. So these Dutch people, they weren't allowed to go to Japan mainland, but they were stationed in an island where all the trade and exchange happened. So the Japanese, at least the upper classes of the Japanese people, they would have access to books, to information, to news from the outside world. So when this American warship arrived to the Japanese coast, at least the elite and the rulers, they were well informed about this new technology, the steam warships. Due to external and internal pressure, let's see if I can move it here. Due to internal and external pressure, and mainly to the external pressure by the Americans, Japanese society went through a cultural transformation, which is called the Meiji Restoration. Okay, it was in 1868, and it completely changed the Japanese society. There was, first of all, the old system was gone. The old system, put this on here, the old system. Meiji Restoration. Okay? The old feudal system is gone. That's it. It's gone. To give way to a new system, of course, heavily influenced by the West. Okay. what happens here is that, let's see if I can move this up a little bit. Yes. So what happened here in this restoration is that the emperor emperor is restored as the head of Japan. Japan is democratized. There are new laws. There is a open exchange of goods and ideas with the world, and even the way people dressed changed. Everything changed. It was a new society. There was lots of trouble. There were wars. The Bushin War. There's about Satsuma battle as well. There are lots of battles, lots of wars, things going on. There, we're not gonna go into this in detail. And then you have the emperor restored. The emperor, he is a figure which I think the emperor is like 1,000 years, so there's a very long emperor tradition in Japan, and it's it's not appointed by God, but the emperor has direct link with the gods themselves. So it is a spiritual figure. It's a holy figure. So even when Japan is unified in the 16th century, they can't just cut the emperor's head. The emperor is the emperor. The emperor is respected. The emperor takes a different role, the role of spiritual leader or something like that, not a political one. And when the emperor is restored, this is the same line of emperor that has been going for hundreds of years. The the emperor appoints the new government, and the new government rules, but the emperor is still the emperor. Okay. Now, thinking about jiu-jitsu, what type of jiu-jitsu was there at this point? What type of jiu-jitsu in Japan? Okay, before the Meiji Restoration, there were several schools, several schools of jiu-jitsu led by families that would keep this knowledge, these traditions within the family and within their disciples. And they would have screws. So hopefully this screws with the techniques, the knowledge of these schools of jiu-jitsu, and these screws would be passed from the master to the disciple. And jiu-jitsu, gentle art. So jiu-jitsu an art is a military art. Okay, jitsu, it's a military art. It's about technique. It's about applying techniques. So there are different schools, and these schools, each school would focus on one aspect of jiu-jitsu. Some would focus more in throwing, others more on striking and kicks, or more on groundwork, submissions and pinning. And also there are all other schools of jiu-jitsu sword schools, um, archery, horse, spear. Okay, so different schools of jiu-jitsu. So the way it's done is the name of the art, then art, so spear, is like jiu-jitsu. No, it's archery. Archery, if I remember well, is jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu. I will have to check this one for you. And that's the way the name is structured. So we have different arts of fighting. During the Edo period, because it was very peaceful, Edo period was peaceful. So there was no need for armor. There were laws in place for people to not be challenging each other and cutting each other's throats in the streets. So the development of the martial arts, they became more and more devoted at the technical aspects of it, not the martial ones. Okay. So when there's the restoration, a person, Jigoro Okano, which is from a family of merchants, sake merchants. So the liquor is a Japanese liquor. Merchants. He gets himself interested in the martial arts, and he is an educator, and he studies mainly two schools of jiu-jitsu, and he practiced mainly two schools of jiu-jitsu, and he also studies other schools of jiu-jitsu. He started practicing Kito. Let's see if I get it right now. Kito Ryu. Kito with a wife. Kito Ryu. It's one school of jiu-jitsu he practices. And the other one is Tenshin Shinyo Ryu. These are the main Ryu. These are two main schools that he actually practices. Okay. One school is standing Tachiwaza, and the other school is focused on ground Newaza. But on top of that, as Jigoro Kano, because these schools, they were basically disappearing because no one were interested in learning fighting anymore. People were interested on other things. So after the Cultural Revolution, the samurai caste is abolished. There is a democratization of the country, so it's an old thing. Even Jigoro Kano's father, he didn't want Jigoro Kano to study martial arts. Okay, and Jigoro Kano also understands that these martial arts, they have a value, they have a cultural value, they have a historical value, they have a national value, and they have an educational value that it could be used by I'm going to use this as sanitizing the practice to make it safe, and inserting embedding educational and philosophical principles to the practice, to his jiu-jitsu. I should use another name, jiu-jitsu. I should use this name here. Okay, so he was creating, using what is old. Something was important. It has to be linked to tradition. So tradition. So to use what is old, to transform it in something new. The interesting aspects about this transformation of jiu-jitsu to judo, because for instance, the caste system. Let's talk about the caste system, how it was up to the point of the Meiji Restoration. And it's a feudal system, so it's a feudalism that has been going on for a long time in Japan. Let's get a pyramid here. And in certain aspects, you guys know, some of you that know me, you know that I studied music for several years, and I studied Indian classical music for a long time, and I have a bit of knowledge about Indian caste system, and the feudal Japanese caste system is in some aspects similar to the Indian caste system. Okay, the caste system is composed of, let me see if I can make a square here. On the top of the caste, the emperor is there. Okay. The emperor, no political power, or little political power. The head figure. Okay, so here's the emperor, the Japanese caste system. Oh, see if I can make it small. Yes. Then, okay, the emperor is always there, regardless of who is ruling the country. And then you have the shogun. And the daimyo. Okay, shogun and daimyo. So shogun is the head of the whole country, is the big dog. And then the small dog, they are the landowners. Is a feudal system, so we have the landlords. The landlords, they were the daimyos. And they together, they control the whole country. Below the shogun, the daimyo, there were the samurais. Something interesting about the shogun and daimyo, and what was very successful, what worked very well, is that when there is the unification of Japan in the 16th century, okay, something interesting and that worked very well is like shogun. He would require once a year, once every specific period of time, the shogun would require his daimyos, his landlords, to travel to the capital. So it would be a huge expense, and then there would be exchanges of hostages as well. Let's see if we can. Exchange of hostages, where the daimyo members of family living in the royal palace. Okay, so extend here. So this system was designed to keep people at check. All the daimyos, all the landlords, because these daimyos, these landlords, they have their armies, they have their soldiers, and these soldiers, they are the samurai, the caste of the samurai. And they are right below in the samurai caste. It is a warrior caste, and this warrior caste belongs, because they belong to each daimyo, to each landlord, and they belong to the shogun as well, and they make sure that everything is under control, basically. Below the samurai caste, you would have the peasants. Okay, peasants. The peasants is the largest class. Peasants. Okay, they're farmers, artisans. They are producing the food, they are producing the houses, they are producing the things that everyone else needs, that the Japan needs to exist. Okay, they are not allowed to wear or to carry weapons. Okay, the samurai, they are obliged, they must carry two weapons, two swords, a long and a short sword, okay, to show their status, to show who they are. It's part of their uniform. And the peasants, they can't carry swords. Of course, throughout the Edo period, these Japanese swords that the samurai wore, they were less and less used, because the country is in peace for a long time. So the samurai, they dedicate themselves at other things. But what happens is the samurai, they can't engage in trade. So as the country is peaceful throughout a long period of time, many of the samurais, they become poor. They are poor and poorer, because they get paid and they have their allowance by their landlords, and they can't engage in war because there's no war. They can't sell their services. So it happens that samurais are so poor that they have to sell the blade of their sword. And they put there is a film called Seppuku. The film called Seppuku tells a story. It's I don't remember the year. It's 1960 something. This film tells a story of a man, a very poor samurai, that goes to a daimyo palace, and his nephew. Anyways, I don't want to spoil the story, but it's a beautiful story, and it's related to the Japanese being so poor that they have to sell their swords, and then they have to carry their swords, and they put a bamboo instead of the blade. Okay? If you're interested, check Harakiri. Not the new one. There's a new Harakiri. It was in 2007. They made, I don't remember the year exactly, around the 2000s, but not this one. Go to the 1960 something version. Okay, so we spoke about the peasants, and at the end, at the bottom of this caste system, who are there? Let me put this square here. Who are there? No. The merchants. The merchants. Oh, I apologize. Merchants for my. No, it's well written. The merchants. They don't produce anything on their own. Okay, they don't do not create with their hands. Okay, they do not create anything valuable with their hands. They make a living by buying and selling. Okay, so this is the caste system. So these guys here, the merchants, they're the lowest in the caste, but of course, throughout the Edo period, the Japanese becoming poor. Let's put this. The Japanese samurai, the Japanese samurai wealth goes down. The wealth, but they still hold their title, and the merchants, they rise in wealth, okay, throughout this period, because they're buying and selling. And the samurais, they had their allowance, and the allowance was not corrected by inflation, interest, or anything. So they became poor over time. There's another caste here in the pyramid, but it's not really in the pyramid, because these people, they actually don't belong to this system. They are called burakumin, called burakumin, and the burakumin, they are the untouchable. Okay, this caste is so low that they're untouchable. You can't even touch them. Other castes wouldn't even want to touch them. And these people, they deal with anything related to blood, to death. Okay, so butchers, executors, working leather, anything related to death is discussed. And basically this is similar to Indian caste system, because you have in the top, you have the Brahmin, the head figures, the religious figures in the Hindu religion. Then you have Kshatriya, they're the warriors. The warriors are the rulers in the Indian caste system. I forgot the other names. So then you have the peasants, you have the artisans, you have the farmers on the bottom of the caste, and then you have in Indian is Dalit. I think it's Dalit, the name of the untouchables. Okay, these guys are Burakumin. There's another name for this. Anyways, this name Burakumin, in Japan, and in India, Dalit. So this is the caste system, and this caste system gets completely void. Okay, this no longer exists in the new Meiji period. So we have lots of the samurai. They're dissatisfied because they lose their status, no? And there's a rebellion. It's a Satsuma rebellion, and it happens that it was a rebellion that took place led by samurais unhappy about the change, and they basically wanted to keep the previous caste system in place. Okay, so this is a very interesting piece of history. Let's put this here. Okay, so there's a cultural transformation, and what is in the place? You have the prohibition of carrying swords, and you have physical educational methods, the French and German uh, physical education methods being introduced in Japan, influencing the Japanese, especially the French method. Um, the martial arts, the ancient martial arts, traditional martial arts, they are no longer something viewed as something good. And Jigoro Kano, he has a vision where he wants to reform. He thinks about innovating this jiu-jitsu that he studies, and to eliminate the dangerous technique, to create a methodology, a structured methodology, and categorizing the system in techniques, having the sparring, the free sparring, and the kata in the system as well. The kata is the demonstration of the forms, the forms of the technique is practicing without resistance, basically. Randori practicing with full resistance, kata practicing without resistance, with collaboration, and creating a philosophical foundation. There's in Japan they have their Shinto religion, there's a Zen Buddhism as well, there's Confucianism influencing them. So Jigoro Kano also introduces the philosophical foundations of Japan, maximum efficiency, minimum effort, Seiryoku Zenyu, and also working towards mutual welfare and benefit, Jita Kyoye. And he changes, then he makes a decision of changing the name, using the name Judo, the art, the gentle way, instead of Jiu-Jitsu, gentle art. But Judo, the way, Judo, the way, is used in part because it is not only about the martial aspect of the art itself, of the martial art itself, but it's a way of life, because there are philosophical principles, it's used for education, it's used to improve the society. And so the way Do is used instead of Jitsu, the art. But Judo is not a name that Jigoro Kano created, because Judo was briefly used, and never took root in another traditional Jiu-Jitsu ryu. And because Jigoro Kano wanted to keep within the tradition, he didn't want to just throw everything out of the window and create something new. No, he wanted this continuation, so he took this name and he created what is the Kodokan Judo. Okay. Interesting things about the Kodokan Judo is that if you check the symbol, the Kodokan Judo symbol, looks like a flower, but it's actually a mirror. The symbol of the Kodokan Judo is a mirror, and the mirror symbolize, I don't remember right now here, but symbolize one of the three artifacts that the emperors they keep. No, every time the Japan changes emperor, there are three ancient artifacts that are changed between emperor to emperor. One is a mirror, another one is a sword, and there's a third artifact that right now I do not remember what it is. And this mirror is a mirror is a it has a history behind it, because it's a mirror. When you look at this mirror, you you can really see yourself. Something. It's like imagine a magical mirror that you're gonna look at the mirror, and by looking through the mirror, you can discover who you really are. This is the mythological mirror that it's part of the three artifacts that the emperors they exchange, they pass to each other. And the copy of this mirror, it's also in these Shinto shrines, the religious temples in Japan. The judo, Kodokan Judo, has also in its building has a writing there, and it's a beautiful writing. I will tell you in Portuguese first, and then I will translate to English. What's written at the Kodokan building is: sem perturbações na mente, busque as maravilhas da natureza, e sem ações intencionais, busque as essências das mudanças. Beautiful, very profound. Is without perturbations, disruptions in the mind, search for the beauties in the nature, and without intentional actions, search for the essences of change. Okay, so if you understand Portuguese, and you will see that how profound this is. Let's talk about now let's see how much time we have been talking to. 43 minutes. Okay, 43 minutes, just the introduction, and I haven't even got to Brazilian Jiu Jitsu yet. Wow. Okay, let's talk about how um, how judo established itself in Japan um, as the main martial art form. And it has, then you are going to see some similarities with how Brazilian Jiu Jitsu established itself in Brazil as a fighting, very effective, efficient fighting art. Because um, when Jigoro Kano was developing judo, there were contests, and these contests they were very very violent. Okay, they could be people would end up injured in these contests, and because this new jiu-jitsu form or judo form that was being established in Japan, it would have to prove itself as being good, as being effective. So people would invade the dojo and challenge the school. There are contests between schools as well. The students would fight each other. There is a contest in the police school, the police academy, where Jigoro Kano goes there and they win the contest. And by winning the contest, the police decide that, okay, this is the style of jiu-jitsu that we want to start practicing. So the introduction of judo in Japan, in these places like in the police, It was through proving for judo to be proven to be effective as a martial arts again as a martial art against other arts. You see, and if you know anything about the Gracies, how they made jiu-jitsu known, it was by doing challenges. Very similar development. Of course, these matches they were the victory could be achieved through a throw or through submission or through a pin. There were, of course, no time limits, no weight divisions. Uh, they would wear the judo gi. The judo gi is something about the judo gi in before 1910 is that it had no sleeves and people would wear shorts, like very short shorts, like mid-thigh shorts and no sleeves. So you wouldn't have so much sleeves to catch. And then by the 1920s, 1930s, around 1920s, the sleeves, they were half the mid of the arm. They are short. The sleeves, they don't get to the wrist, but they go past a little bit past the elbow. Still short sleeves. And the trousers there, they're lower, slightly lower than go below the knee, but don't go. So this jiu-jitsu gi that we use today is something not as the design is actually not as, and the judo gi as well, is not as old as judo is. It has been evolving over time, and as the gi, the jiu-jitsu judo gi gets longer and longer in sleeves and trousers, there is also opportunities for technical development, because when you have the gi, the judo gi or jiu-jitsu gi, as long as your wrist, going as far as the wrist, you will have opportunity to apply different techniques, because then you have a strong grip around the wrist area. Okay. Now let's think about jiu-jitsu. Let's start going to talking about jiu-jitsu. Okay, the foundation of jiu-jitsu. Mitsui Maeda, he teaches in Brazil, and to the Graces, Maeda, oh, Graces, and also he has a school, and he taught other students as well. Okay, but Maeda is one Japanese. He is not the only Japanese that was a martial arts practitioner that traveled to Brazil. The Brazilian Navy had a combat the Brazilian Navy had introduced combat training to sailors, of course, and they also trained jiu-jitsu. So the Navy has a history of jiu-jitsu training. It has a history of jiu-jitsu training, and from there are other lines of jiu-jitsu that they are parallel to the Gracie line of jiu-jitsu. And This is very interesting because we think about only Maeda was the guy that came to Brazil single-handed and taught the whole Brazil Jiu-Jitsu. No, there are lots of contests at this time. There are lots of there are other Japanese people going to Brazil. These people, some of them they opened their schools, they taught in the Navy. Um, the Gracies themselves, they learned not only from Maeda but from other Japanese as well. So it's something that um, that is not very well known, not very well spoken about, because there are people that have the, the interest or the tendency to say that there was only Maeda, and it wasn't. Of course, then the Gracies are the people that make uh, Jiu-Jitsu mainstream, of course, but doesn't mean that they were the only ones doing Jiu-Jitsu. Let's talk about now. Let's talk about the early development of the Jiu-Jitsu from the Gracies. The What's the difference between Judo and Jiu-Jitsu? Because if a person that is from Kodokan Maeda goes to Brazil and teaches the Brazilian what he learned, what he taught, what was the thing he taught. But of course, you have to take into consideration that before going to Brazil, Maeda spent a decade traveling, and he was a prize fighter. So he was fighting against people from different countries. He went to Cuba, United States. I believe that he was in France as well. Then he goes to Brazil, and in Brazil, there this contest. They would put in the newspaper. Okay, like if you come to this place today, you try to put this guy with his back on the ground. If you manage to get this, you're gonna get some money. Like this prize fighting, or they would organize fighting against local uh, fighters, like from the capoeira, the Brazilian capoeira, and wrestlers as well. And that's how Maeda made his name. Okay, so but what was the thing that Maeda was doing? The thing what Maeda was doing, partially, at least partially, mostly, it was the thing that was being taught the Kodokan at this time. And thinking about the Kodokan judo in 1910s is something different from the Kodokan judo 1930s, and very different the judo, Olympic judo in the 60s, 70s, 2000s. You see, these things, they evolved. And when you think about the jiu-jitsu from the Gracies in 1920 or 30s, no, and 50s, is very different from the jiu-jitsu that we practice today. Our competitive jiu-jitsu it's different. The things, they evolved because they this evolved to deal with new challenges, solve new problems. There are something similarities between Helio Gracie when you think about how things are built, ideas, myths, historical events, and how we talk about it. Because Helio Gracie, he was physically smaller than his brothers, and Helio had to modify the techniques to rely more on leverage than strength. You know? But when you read about Jigoro Kano life. And Jigoro Kano was a small person as well, and he had troubles when he was studying, and so he wanted to use this jiu-jitsu that he was studying also to protect himself. The Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, it is, when you look at there's a VHS DVD of Helio Gracie with the 30 is a 35 lessons. The original Gracie, Helio Gracie lessons, the way it was structured, it was that it was designed as private lessons, one-to-one lessons, and so you have around 35 lessons. They're all self-defense lessons, and each lesson you would learn a move, a technique, a self-defense technique. So when you go through this, you would train 3 lessons and repeat 1 lesson. You have 3 lessons and repeat the 1 lesson, 3 and 1, 3 and 1, and until you go through all the 35 lessons. Okay. And this is the methodology they use, is self-defense focused methodology that you would be able to defend yourself standing against someone catching or hugging you from the back, holding your head. If you're on your back on the floor, they had like this, defending against a stick, throwing a person to the ground, defending a punch, and all self-defense, very self-defense centered. This was the focus of the original Gracie Jiu-Jitsu up to 1950s. It was designed, and you listen to Helio Gracie's interviews, and Helio Gracie himself, they say, let me just put something here, because I'm talking and not writing. Helio Gracie would say, I'm paraphrasing him, okay? Meu jiu-jitsu é para o fraco se defender do forte, não? So my jiu-jitsu is designed, meant for the weak, defend against the strong. And he would say that, the jiu-jitsu for the weak person, the jiu-jitsu for the one that actually needs, because the guy who is already strong, is already, he doesn't need jiu-jitsu. And then, I'm paraphrasing as well, that, the Gracie would say, we wanted to era para provar que a nossa arte era melhor que as outras, mais eficiente que as outras artes. So, we proved that our art is more efficient than the others. And there, Rickson Gracie, I'm paraphrasing Rickson Gracie as well, about how the weak person, how the smaller person can defend against the bigger person when there's actual fight. The weaker needs time to wear the stronger out, to make him tired, Weaker, not the weaker. Because the whole point about the jiu-jitsu as a self-defense, when you defend, having to defend yourself, fighting against another person that's bigger than you, you need Rickson Gracie, he talks about it. You need time. You need time to make the other person tired. See, You need time because, and then Rickson Gracie also says that then because when there's time limits, things get difficult because the first 5 minutes the strong guy is has all the energy and you're defending yourself, and then there's a time limit in the fight. You have to rest. Of course, the guy is gonna rest, and you're the smaller one, and then you go back. You have another 5 minutes of someone destroying you with all energy. Someone that's big and is rested. So you need to make the other person tired. So these are components of the Gracie philosophy of Jiu Jitsu. If we go back to Kano's idea of Jiu Jitsu, how it evolved. Let me get this one here. Kano. Kodokan. Let's go Kodokan. Judo. Okay. You have martial art, of course. Self-defense. No, self-defense. The original Kano Kodokan self-defense. You have the self-defense. Then you have a physical education, the mental development. But you also have a philosophical aspect of it as well. You have morals. So this is the idea. So you have maximum, minimum effort, and then you have mutual benefit. You see, minimum. Just this bothers me, this type of defense. Okay, so this is Jigoro Kano. Now, when we thinking about based on the Gracie's accounts and the historical accounts that we can see, sometimes we can find there are lots of information, magazines, there are interviews online as well, some interviews that exist with Eddie Gracie. There's Sheila Gracie. Sheila Gracie has a book. I haven't read the book, but I listened to her interviews talking about the Carlos Gracie family, her father. Sheila Gracie is Roger Gracie's mother. But we don't have a book, like a book about the Gracie philosophy, Gracie book written by Carlos Gracie or Carlos and Elio. Carlos and Elio. We don't have it. It seems that's something that Carlos Gracie wrote, but I've never seen it. If anyone has it, please send it to me. But we don't have a book. We do not a book by Kano either. But what happened with Jigoro Kano? They compiled many things of that Jigoro Kano wrote, and over time and spoke over time, and these books compiled in Mind Over Matter in English. So in this you can see Kano's writing about choosing the name of Judo Why foundational. So you see the difference here. Let's just not digress. So I'll talk about the difference here in philosophy. You see the difference here because then you have the Gracies pre-50s, now like 950s, Gracies, even 90s, up to 90s as well. It was to efficiency. The martial art to be efficient. Just move this up. It's about efficiency. It's about proving, uh, dominating other arts. You see, and it's much related with the term jutsu, art. When you think about Kodokan here, it's much about do, the way of life. Okay, but the Gracies, they are very concerned about the jutsu, the art. So this is a huge difference, huge philosophical difference of the early judo and the early Gracie Jiu-Jitsu in Brazil. Um, let's talk about the changes in rule set. Let me go back to something that I wanted to talk about. Is about, sometimes you see people posting saying, they see the Kozen Judo video and they share Kozen video and they say, this is the Brazilian Jiu Jitsu is Kozen Judo. Okay, Kozen Judo is practiced at technological universities. Okay. Now they are focused on Newaza. And of course, there are similarities. There are some similarities when you look at Kozen Judo, similarities to Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. But are they related? Is Brazilian Jiu Jitsu just Kozen Judo? Look, the Japanese migration to Brazil was about in the 90s, okay? Around this time, you have the many vessels coming to Brazil from Japan. You have Jiu-Jitsu practitioners going to Brazil. Then you have Maeda going to Brazil about 1914. 1914. Now, 1914, Maeda arrives in Brazil. Okay, and Maeda is the main person in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu development. Is the one that taught the Gracies. However, the origins of Kozen Judo goes back to 1914, because in 1914 the technical colleges is Kozen. Kozen is technical college. The Ministry of Education includes judo in this Kozen, okay, technical college curriculum, okay, as physical education. It's a wider physical education. You see? In 1914, Maeda was arriving in Brazil. Okay? So how come, now you tell me, someone please tell me, how come Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is just Kozen Judo if Kozen is called is called technical college, and the judo in the technical college was introduced in 1914, not before. This thing happens in Brazil, why Kozen? Why the people doing judo in Kozen focus more in Newaza? Why more Newaza? Ground. Newaza ground. If you don't know. Why? The same reason. One of the same reason is that why Brazilian Jiu Jitsu focuses more on ground. Look, we need to think about risk of injuries, space limitation. Okay, let's put this. Space limitation is the biggest thing. Then you have also competitive advantages. Okay, depending on rule set. Now we are going to talk about rule set here. Okay. When we have a rule set that allows that you start standing up, okay, rule set. Let's talk about the rule set. Wait a second, get this somewhere there. Rule set, okay. Now you have rules that starts with standing up. Let's see if I can copy and paste this. Yeah, no. You start standing up. And then, what's the next thing you do? Take the fight to the ground, no? That's what you have to do. You start standing up and take the fight to the ground. You can win by ippon, okay? Then if you take the fight to the ground, you win by ippon. If the other person has his or her back on the ground, okay, then you win. That's it. It's a perfect throw. No, you win by perfect throw. Throw. But let's get another one. But then what happened? The whole complexity arrives in terms of rule set is what happened when there's no perfect throw. Okay? What happened? So there's ground, fight. Okay. The technical development of ground fight, I'm gonna write this down here for you. The technical development of ground fight greatly depends, now is greatly influenced, ground fight is greatly influenced by the maximum time you are allowed to fight on the ground. Okay, the Jiu Jitsu, Judo, Kozen, no gi, whatever you want, okay? You start standing up. Now, gonna take the fight to the ground. The first question here will be, let me get this one. The first question here will be, in terms of rule set, am I winning by ippon? Okay? Am I winning by ippon? Let's disconnect this one. Now, yes. Oops, here. And no. Okay? Yes. I'm winning by ippon. No, I'm not winning by ippon. And now let's see what happens in these two cases, these two scenarios. Now let's put this on top. Let's explore. Let's explore. Okay, if I am winning by ippon, I want to have a refined throwing technical skill, which increases the likelihood there's a likelihood to finish the match by the throw itself. Okay? Are you following me? Let's see if you're following me. I want to have the refined throwing technical skill, which increases the likelihood for me to finish the match by the throw itself, if I'm winning by ippon. So I'll be practicing. It will lead me to practice my throw in a way that I will master the throw. Okay, let's put it, I will master the throw to get the ippon. Okay, I will master the throw to get the ippon. This thing here requires lots of time. So I will have to be working lots of time here in order to time throwing. I'll have to be working lots of time here to develop this skill. Now, if I'm winning by ippon, I want to have a refined throw, and we know that the technical development of ground fights is greatly influenced by the maximum time you're allowed. Okay? Now, if I don't win by ippon, then I have to engage on newaza. Let me get this a new one here. Look. Okay, the rule set. Okay, if I do not win by ippon, I will fight on the ground. Let's put it like this. I will fight on the ground, correct? Now the point is, I will then, am I winning by pinning? Am I winning by pinning as well. You see? No. And yes. Okay. If I'm not winning by pinning, let's not extend this because it can get a little bit. If I'm not winning by pinning, the second throw, I have to refine my ability to submit. Okay, ability. Anyways, I'm not gonna be correcting now. Okay, if I'm not winning by, let me make it bigger for you here. If I'm not winning by pinning, I will have to refine my ability to submit. Okay, not winning by pinning. If I'm winning by pinning, I will get good at pinning. I'll get good at pinning. So that I can. Okay, you see, all these considerations you have to take into consideration. You need to have when you're thinking about why something developed the way they develop. We were talking about the Kozen and Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. So there are space considerations and there are rule set considerations as well. If you are in a fight that you can win by a pawn, and then you also can win by pinning. So you're going to be practicing your ippons and your pinnings, okay? The throws, they take lots of time. Knowing how to pin someone well, it takes some time as well. Submission, yeah, you will have submissions, but it may even not be your priority because then it will depend on your style of training, okay? But what happens when you don't win by ippon? If ippon is eliminated from the rule set as a way of winning and just gives you points, now you need to win by submission. Let's just put only submission here, just to make this not to make this much longer. You see what happened here when if I can't win by throwing, I will develop, in this case, I will develop a more sophisticated, I will develop more my ground game. Okay? Because if I'm not winning by a pawn, I need to be very careful when I throw to not end up on bottom. I don't want to end up on bottom. Okay? Because if you are in a competition, you win by pawn, you may not be concerned about after you get a perfect score, a pawn. You are not concerned about what comes next, which would be maybe someone being on top of you. It's not, you already won, doesn't matter. But when you're not winning by a pawn, you have to submit. Things will change because now you have to develop a number of throws which they are safe enough for you to engage on, to apply, to execute, where it's less likely for you to end up on bottom, number one. And then, as you're going to spend, there's something that we haven't spoke about here, okay? And let's cover this about, let me do this and move this up. Now the next big question is, how long is the ground time limit? Okay, this is the next big question. How long is the time limit for ground fighting? Because when we have a time limit, which, okay, you can have let's say 30 seconds unlimited. You have 30 seconds. I think Kozen had 30 seconds time limit. Then the original judo 25 seconds. Then I think the rule set changed, and then we went like 20 of, let's say 15 seconds. Okay, imagine this is the ground time limit, and this, depending on how much time you're going to spend on the ground after both competitors go to the ground, so it will affect the development of your jiu-jitsu, of your judo, of anything, of your grappling. Even if you're doing grappling, okay, this is going to influence your strategy. Okay, originally, when think about Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu done by the Gracies in the challenges, invading academies, like fighting the streets, fighting in the nightclubs, and all the sort of things that it was done. They did. The concern was, standing up, fighting, and then taking the person to the ground, and then, punching and submitting. Okay, so it's unlimited. The time on the ground is unlimited. When you think about causing judo, if you have 30 seconds on the ground, or if you have unlimited on the ground, so you're going to develop a more sophisticated newaza and a more sophisticated ground game. But what happened? Look, what happened between? Just let's go back to the question. Is Kozen Jiu-Jitsu, Kozen Judo, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Kozen Judo, and Kodokan Judo. First of all, it's different because Kozen 1914, okay, 1914. Then that's it. Maeda came to Brazil in 1914. There's no way these two things can be connected. And Kozen and Kodokan, they held tournaments, okay, two styles. I think that was around the 20s, okay, early 20s, early 20s, let's say, early 20s. They were fighting each other. So what happened here is that because of the rule set, they were engaged in the same rule set. There was enough time for newaza, okay? So they would develop newaza. And it affected Kodokan because Kodokan Judo, after these tournaments against the Kozen Judo, it was influencing the Kodokan Judo style. Because now you can pull guard. Okay, if you are going to fight a guy that you're going to throw the guy to the ground and you're going to continue fighting on the ground, why are you going to rotate your back to the other person, which is something very difficult to do, like a seo inage, for instance. So you have to rotate to give your back to the person, and then you try to throw the person. It's extremely difficult. Why would you do this if it would be easier for you to spend more time on the ground and then trying to submit or even to pin the person on the ground? Understand? So then you can change your strategy. In this case, then strategy can be, let's say, sumigaeshi to an armbar, to submission or sweep. You see? But when myself, or like our students, let's talk about my students. When my students, I send them to compete, I'm talking about the children competitor. They are there to engage in throwing, engage in passing the guard, engage in mount, and submit. This is the jiu-jitsu that we learn. However, many times, and it's happening here in Czech Republic, it's happening more and more because the children, they are learning to play guard, and the children realize they don't have to exchange grips with another child. They can just pull guard. You see? So the whole strategy has to change, because now you have to take into consideration that it takes lots of time to know how to throw properly. It takes much less time to learn how to pull guard. You see? So it's more efficient in terms of strategy. It's more efficient to pull guard and then try to progress towards a submission. Now, another consideration about this, we are talking about Kozen, and we're talking about Brazilian Jiu Jitsu as well. The Brazilian Jiu Jitsu that we know today, it went through different stages, okay? You have the stage of the early development. I'm gonna use this here. Okay, BJJ early development. It was about 20s to 50s, okay? Here we have learning the judo, the jiu-jitsu, development, apologies. Okay, learning it, and then creating the first school, private lessons, the first challenges. It happens at this time. This is to prove, okay, that it works. Prove it works. And then you have on the 60s, around the 60s, you have in around the 60s, Carlos Gracie traveled, I think it was in the 50s, he traveled to the north of Brazil, and then Carlos Gracie and Helio, they separated for several years. It was around the 50s, no? And around this time as well, the jiu-jitsu, it was less trendy. And Helio Gracie had some very, very important private students that he would teach privately. And this was the jiu-jitsu in the 50s. But then Carlos Gracie comes back, they reunite with Helio, and then they start this like rule set. They start creating a rule set of points. Okay, points. I think 2 points was the takedown. 2 points sweep. Then 4 points mount. Okay, this is the rule set Um, I don't think there was points for passing the guard at this time, in the 60s. Okay, so this was the rule set. But this was the foundation. This is the foundation of IBJJF rules. Okay. Another development was the 80s and 90s, because here you have Rickson Gracie, or you have Rose Gracie, Rickson, then you have Royce. Okay, these three guys here. Okay, Rose Gracie, he passed away. He had an accident, and he passed away very, very young. Okay, but he has Mestre Jacaré and Mauricio Gomes. He has few students that he gave a black belt. These two, Cavalcante. Okay, and this is our teacher, where we come from. Mestre Jacaré gave the black belts to Léo Vieira, Ricardo Vieira, Leandro Vieira, and Mauricio Gomes. He is the father of Roger Gracie. Okay, so Rose Gracie was son of Carlos. I hope I get this right, huh? And he was living with Ellie. And Rose Gracie, he was cross training. He was learning wrestling. He was competing in different rule sets. Rose Gracie. Okay, so the development here. What happened here? Let's go. Okay, here. So we have Rickson Gracie fighting Rei Zulu. Zulu. They have two fights. One in 2 fights. Was in 1980 and 1983, the second one. Okay, so I hope I got these 2 dates right. So he had 2 fights there, okay? And the Rorion Gracie. Rorion is extremely important, because Rorion Gracie goes to the US. Okay, Rorion Gracie goes to the US and start challenges people, and starts teaching Jiu-Jitsu. But the way they're teaching is challenge. They go to the garage and they're gonna fight each other. A guy from the karate, a guy from taekwondo, and that's the way they made their name in the US. Rickson did the same thing in Rio. Okay, Rickson. The search Rickson luta praia do PP. Okay, search for this online. You're gonna see Rickson Gracie in a fight. I think you can find this online. Okay, so they would fight by the sea, in the beach. And there's these challenges. And finally you have Royce Gracie in the UFC. And the UFC created by Rorion. And the UFC was created to prove Jiu-Jitsu more efficient than other arts. So it was the way they chose the the contenders, the way the first, at least the first three UFCs was captured in a way that Royce, which was a smaller guy, a skinny guy, was able to defeat bigger guys. You know, no rule set. There are minimal rule set. So that's how Jiu-Jitsu, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, develops. But what happened? You have a very, very important figure here, Carlos Gracie Jr. He creates the IBJJF, the International Brazilian Federation. The first, it starts, I'll see if I get it right. In the 90s, it was about 94. I think it's about 94. So you have the world championships, the world championships in Brazil. I think it was until 1999, and then the IBJJF goes to Brazil, to the US, I'm sorry. Goes to the US. And Carlos Gracie, IBJJF rule set is designed in a way to represent the, let's call it the martial aspect of Jiu-Jitsu. Okay? Which means, and that's the way I teach Jiu-Jitsu. Everyone that comes first time, I ask them, do you know anything about the Jiu-Jitsu? And then I give a very short explanation. Okay. You have distance management, connecting, taking to the ground, passing the legs, lateral control, top control, top control, or back control. So it's designed in a way that you are rewarded by progression, by increasing your capacity, improving your grips and progressing your control up to the with the culmination, up to the submission. And another thing is to make it safe to practitioners. And then you have 2 points, take down. You have 3 points, passing the legs. You have 4 points, top control, mount. You have 4 points, back control. See? And when you look at this point system, if you go back to our notes in the 60s, like, where is it? Early, yeah, here. Okay, this is the foundation. This is the foundation of the this actually 60s, around the 60s. This is the foundation of the rule set that most competition use. This is the foundation. Okay, we have been talking for almost 2 hours, and I will have to go soon. Anything else I would like to mention? We spoke about Kozen, difference between Kozen and Jiu Jitsu, why they're not related. A bit of historical context on the creation of Judo, Jiu Jitsu as well, a little bit of Helio Gracie, and I think that there are lots of information here. I didn't mention anything about the development of the rule set in Judo rule set. I think that we are talking about Brazilian Jiu Jitsu here. But just to finish, I would like to talk a little bit. Let's see if I make 2 hours. I have five more minutes. And because if you think about, now you say, but Judo and BJJ. Judo and BJJ starts at the same time, around the same time. So, no. Forget this one. Judo is the same time. Judo is 1980. Okay, something. And then you have BJJ. Let's put BJJ like 1970, around. Then you have, I can make another talk about it. I could compare Judo and Brazilian Jiu Jitsu rule set across time. So let's stop here because it would take me more time, and I have to think it through first before I start talking about these comparisons. But maybe when I have time, maybe I would like to think about talk about comparing different disciplines across time in terms of rule set development, and we can talk about even Kozen Judo, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, Kozen Judo, and Kodokan Judo, and then we go from when it started up to now, and how the rule set changed, and the philosophical background of each one, and maybe a little bit of historical context, but I think that we had lots of historical context right now. It might not be relevant. Okay, so thank you. Let me just make this one here a little bit for you to see. Let's see what we did here. So if you're interested in seeing it in one page, look. Okay, enjoy life and be good, and let's do Jiu Jitsu.